If you like to read and you like sewing, this is going to be a great opportunity for you to join our book club, our sewing book club on Dorothy's Daughter. We meet on Zoom the third Saturday of every month. This past month we discussed The Paris Dressmaker by Kristy Cambron. It was a wonderful World War II saga about the French resistance. If you'd like to join us for next month's Zoom, join us on the third Saturday of October when we'll be discussing The Pattern Artist by Nancy Moser. All right, check out our Zoom from this past month's meeting.
I thought there are so many sewing themed books out there. I can't believe how many there are. Sewers must be readers.
I think we are. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all are. And so there's a lot to pick from, which is good because that means we can keep this going a while before we have to dig back to other books. But I think there's enough related that we should be able to go for quite a while. So this is the Paris seamstress. So what did you guys think of the book?
I enjoyed
Just
it.
your overall feeling about it.
I enjoyed it because I enjoy reading about that period of history anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And
Me too.
it's a bonus that it's about sewing related things.
Yeah.
The characters were good, and a lot of the novels that I read for the local library book club have a little bit much swearing and a little bit too much explicit descriptions of things going on. And this one didn't. It wasn't out of line. I didn't think
her books tend to be really clean. They'll give you a love story just enough where you get the idea, but they don't go into
I don't need details.
We don't need that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the old movies where the door closed and you knew what happened, but you didn't need to see it.
Yep.
That's my favorite genre is World War II.
Yes.
I love, I don't know why, but I think it's the perseverance that people had getting through that. It just amazes me. And I just think that, especially right now, worrying about what kind of times we could be going into. Yep. Not getting political at all, but we don't know and everybody can agree on that, right?
Right.
So, and just, how they get through it and the strength of the human spirit. And, for me, the strength of God, but, whatever your faith system is, but
yes,
it's just, to me, amazes me. It just amazes me how people got through that. My dad was the first wave at Normandy.
Oh, my dad was the next wave. He was he was not D-Day, but he was following later. And I often wonder how bad it was to see what was going on.
That might have even been worse because they had to see what had happened before.
Right.
But I think, gosh, it's possible myself, my brother, my sister might not have even been here,
Exactly.
It's crazy to think about. I think my brother would have been, because I think he was born after my dad left during the war. He's turning 80.
Wow.
I have a brother turning 80, which he's 13 years older than I am, and he's turning 80 on the 30th. So I'm leaving next Friday to go down to San Antonio to celebrate his 80th birthday.
Wonderful.
And the two of us need that after just going to our sister's funeral. So I think it'll be a real nice time to spend together. But he was he was born in, I don't know, 44. So I guess, she would have been pregnant already, probably. So he would have been here, but my sister and I wouldn't have. So, but what did you think, Anne?
I enjoyed it. It fits in with several other books that I've been reading, both different sides of it. I read a Coco Chanel biography I thought was really an interesting one.
Ooh,
and I've been reading some with more from the Jewish side with people being incarcerated and so on, and
Mm-hmm.
what the fear they had to go through. So this was very interesting to read, and it kind of, put together with what I've been reading, gave me a real interesting viewpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my genre. So I've read so many like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pretty much, they're all a little bit different, but like nobody, like the same facts are in there. Like and I know that some of them are based on real experiences. So
Yes.
it's real interesting. The only thing that I thought about this book is it gave me a little bit of whiplash going
It
from
was, and figuring out who,
before he left, and then after he got back, then back to Sandrine, and then and it was a little bit like I had to go to the beginning of the chapter and go, okay, where am I in time, and who is this?
Who is this? Yes.
Yeah.
Finally, you kind of understood the arrondissement. I don't know how it's pronounced, but that was okay. I finally figured out who that would be about. But,
yeah. But it was interesting. Saving the paintings and all that was incredible. So, and I'm going to try. Hopefully, none of the other two books I've read since I finished this one will come in here. So, if I talk inappropriately about a book, you can set me straight. But they were. Go ahead.
Oh, I said I thought the same thing about the back and forth. And we've had that same discussion at our other book club about how just all of us, and we are of like a certain similar age, we find that hard to follow. And we wondered if it was maybe because the younger generation is so used to, like in media, they switch from one to the other really fast. And so it doesn't bother them.
Very true. Very true. I wondered too if I don't know how else she could have written it.
Yeah.
Like I was trying to think of how could she have done that, but so many things, the way to make them tie together, it almost kind of had to be that way.
Yeah, I think she could have. I think she could have written it linear, but I think the suspense of how does this all fit together is greater when she broke it up.
Right. Yeah, because you're like, okay, that she ends up there, but how?
Yeah, how do you get there?
How did she get, and then what, or more often I was thinking, what in her past got her to this point, like how, why did they separate? Why did he leave her that night? And, all that. Yeah, that was interesting. I'm going to pull up the book club discussions in the back there.
Oh, good.
Let's see. I had them pulled up. Here we go. The first one was Lila's journey. Lila, I don't know. When it's a book, you never know, right? Is it probably Lila, since she was French, maybe Lila. Lila's journey through the war takes her from the frivolity of pre-war Paris fashion world to dressing the Nazis' high society women at the Hotel Ritz, to eventually fighting with the Free French during the tumultuous last days of the occupation. How did the years 1939 to 1944 change Lila's view of the world? And how did these words describe what may have changed her? Naivete, passion, strength, hope, apathy, bravery, and then what other words describe her? She was quite naive, I think, in the beginning. She just wanted to make dresses and didn't really have all of that on her in her scope.
Right. And it kind of makes you, you can look at yourself and think, how naive are you about things going on? And, you have your passion for the things you love to do. And how do you fit that with, what's going on around you? We like to live in our little bubble a lot of times. And she was no different.
Right. I'm sure she would have loved to crawl back into her bubble. at times. Do you think she got stronger?
Oh, yes.
I don't think she was as strong as she ended up being in the beginning.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, definitely naive. And of course, you trust friends, you trust people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, though he'd wanted to propose to Lila at the start of the war, Renee ultimately breaks off the relationship, thinking he's protecting her from the danger of what is to come. What might have been different about their journey if they'd married at the start of the war and instead endured the trials together? What is most important in relationships that endure through trials? I don't know. It's hard to say, because
Yeah.
they each had to have those unique experiences that they had in order to be the people they became, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you would have had the story. You wouldn't have had the growth.
Plus, she
that
wouldn't have
came,
had that
especially for
access.
her, right?
She wouldn't have had the access to those Nazi women, which, was a big part of the story
Mm-hmm.
and a big reason she was able to help.
Yeah.
It's interesting I thought it was interesting how the dress just kind of tied them all together.
That was really,
I was like, it's because I was thinking all the way through, I'm like, okay, how are these two women gonna, how are their stories gonna converge? Because they always do in a book, and you think, I'm always trying to figure that out. I used to be really bad when I had real books, I would go and read the back couple pages, and then I would spoil it for myself. But now with the Kindle, it's easier to not do that.
I still go back and read the end sometimes because I don't want all this suspense. I know. I'm not. I don't.
You need to have a conclusion.
I need to have a conclusion now, and then I'll enjoy the journey getting there later.
I only do that if it's a really slow book, like okay, I'm not going to waste a lot of time on this book. I just want to know how it turns out.
Mm-hmm.
And those would be books I wouldn't give a very high review to because they don't keep my interest enough to persevere through the story. The dynamic of Lala and Amelie's relationship takes many turns throughout the war, including their choices to align with opposite sides of the conflict. Does Lila forgive Amelie for her anti-Semitic views and for making poor choices that ultimately result in attempting to turn Renee and his family over to the Nazi authorities? How do we continue to love others whose views oppose our own, especially when we don't agree with their life choices? Interesting question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, we need to know that for today. Nothing's
I know. I was thinking that. Yeah, we all have friends that are on the opposite side of the political spectrum that, no matter which side you're on. I don't want to get political, but I don't want to talk about that part. But how do you maintain a friendship, not be judgmental? It's hard. I think it's hard.
It is.
And I can't imagine even in that instance that she was in, and Amelie was such a brat. Didn't you just want to slap her? I mean, she was horrible. She was so superficial. And it seemed like all those young girls were, but there really were those girls that allowed themselves to be pampered by those Nazi officers. And well, there are girls like that today. I mean, there are girls who just let men dress them and pamper them, and it's about that deep,
And I think that in the whole of the women's movement, we women don't acknowledge that there are women like that, and they hold that greater cause, but we tend to deny their existence. And
we do. You're
anything,
right.
that doesn't do anybody any good. You know,
No.
like I always feel so frustrated with the believe every woman, rhetoric that was going
Hmm.
around. It's like, doesn't anybody understand that women lie? You know, they
Yeah,
do. They,
exactly.
they lie
Yeah.
to clean and to get back at a man. And
What
so,
happened to believing the men too? I mean,
Mhm.
exactly,
some,
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
you know, two
and
sides to every story, you know,
Mhm.
and
and
is
having friends with opposite views. One way that it works for me right now is we have common ground in other areas.
Yes.
And
hmm
so
yeah.
we build our bridges in our relationship there, and we respect each other's stances, but we don't necessarily
Hmm.
discuss them because, you know,
Hmm.
we can enjoy our friendship based on this rather
Mhm.
than that. So,
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
very true.
Agreed.
That could
I
extend to
suppose
family
they,
too.
oh
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
whether it's religious, what you believe, you're political, there's so many things. You learn where not to step and where to step.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, there are times when you know someone well enough, you've earned the right to tell them how you feel about something, I think.
Hmm.
But then there's other times when you're not really deep enough with somebody to earn that right to share your views or to,
Hmm.
you know, I think you have to earn that right, like by, being a deeper friend.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep.
Hmm.
And I think like getting back to the story, I think that Leela had done that. I mean,
Hmm.
but her friend changed and they just changed. They both changed, but they went in opposite directions.
Yeah.
And sadly for her friend, her end didn't go so well.
Hmm.
It's really sad for those naive girls. You know, sad really is.
Definitely.
Um, Sandrine's wartime experience is shaped by many aspects of her life, from being a wife and mother to being forced to support and work alongside the very overlords she opposes. How does Sandrine attempt to hold fast to her convictions while fighting to protect her family at the same time? And why wasn't Sandrine spared from the public épuration sauvage? I have no idea if that's how to say it. Events that took place at Liberation, especially when she fought for the resistance through the war. That I that was a sad part of the book. That and you wonder how many of those women. I was reading the. Did you read the author's notes in the back? She was saying how there really were a lot of women set on fire, killed. When a lot of resistance workers that were so far underground that they did ultimately get killed by the people they were trying to help.
Hmm.
Wow.
So that was interesting. I felt so bad for her losing her dad and then her little boy. She had to do what she had to do for him. And I don't know, do you think that officer had somewhat of a good thread in him, but just because of who he was, it just ultimately the Nazism took over. But in the beginning, I feel like he really was trying to be kind to her.
It did appear that way, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I
You
thought,
were
oh,
hopeful that maybe he would
mm-hmm.
be good.
But then he was probably scared as well.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, have you read The Nightingale
No.
by Kristen Hanna? It's about two sisters. One was in the French Resistance, one was in the home front, and it's probably the best book I've ever read.
Hmm.
It's wonderful. I highly recommend it. But the one sister stayed in her home. She had like a farm,
Mm-hmm.
and a Nazi officer moved into her house, uninvited. And he was actually a decent guy. And you know, how how he was like a decent guy being forced to do the things he had to do was really an interesting part of that story. Ultimately, he was a Nazi, but it was, it was at one point where the that one sister ultimately almost fell in love with him, but she didn't. But it was a very good book, very, very good book. I need to read it again because it's been a while. Probably the best World War II book I've ever read. So if you like that kind of thing, really good. It might not be as clean as this one though. Just I don't remember. I don't remember it being horrible. But Kristen Hanna isn't like known. I mean, she's a good stories and not risque or anything, but she's not known for like clean literature,
Okay.
So I think she's pretty good though. Lost the page. When they part at the train station at the start of the war, Christiane gives Sandrine an envelope meant to give her hope down the long road ahead. How do you think she chose the precise time to open it? And how does what she finds in that envelope change her course of action? I don't remember when she opened it. I know she did, but I can't remember what part of the story that was.
Yeah, this question kind of throws me off because it's like all of a sudden she had opened it and
yeah, I didn't feel like that was a big event.
No.
But the author wrote these questions. So
yeah.
we must have
missed that part.
Yeah, we must have missed something. I was hoping you guys would fill me in.
I don't remember either.
Yeah, it seemed like just suddenly it was open and you knew the contents.
Several secret items serve as undercurrent for characters' motivations in the story. The Touillard Cartier necklace, Lila's journal cataloging the stolen Jewish art, the microfilm Lila smuggles out of the Hotel Ritz on New Year's Eve, Christiane's lighter found by Captain Von Hiller, and the Paris Opera House. The page from Sandrine and Christian's family Bible, and the custom 1938 Chanel gown. How does each item impact the character's journey throughout the story? Well, the gown is obvious. I mean, yeah, it was, it's what tied them together. Besides the Renee and Christiane working together in the resistance, which we don't know till the very end.
Right.
I think it's all. The necklace, I think, inspired Lila to, remember Renee's family, that he was, his family had to flee, and he could have, but he didn't. He stayed there and fought, which was interesting. Chanel's salon closure at the beginning of the novel sparks changes for fashion workers, such as Lila and Emily. How is fashion used as a conduit for events in the novel? How did Parisian women use fashion to defy the Nazis and survive through their circumstances? I haven't looked up any other instances of it, but just having the hidden messages in the dress was pretty neat.
Yeah, I had never really heard of that before. Yeah, so that was really interesting.
I had heard that Chanel closed, and I'm not sure. I think Coco Chanel, I don't know if she was a Nazi sympathizer or not.
It was very unclear. I'm not sure anybody knows.
And the other book I read was unclear also.
Yeah.
But there was, and I think one of the books I'm going to suggest, and maybe you guys have read it already, so we won't pick it, but The Gown. Have you read The Gown?
Yes.
It's set right. You have read it.
Yes, it's been a while, so you may have
Me
to fill
too.
me in on the details.
I would have to reread it, but I think I remember hearing about Chanel closing down in that book, because I think that's why the girl who ultimately ended up working on Princess Elizabeth's gown I think that's why she was out of work.
Yeah, I think
Something
you're
like
right.
that. Yeah. So, because it was set right after the war, when Princess Elizabeth and Philip were getting married, and it was all about her gown. And it was centered around a girl that was assigned to work on it, and it was a beautiful story.
It was really good.
I heard there was a in London they had a museum show or whatever, exhibit. I couldn't think of the word. I don't know how old you guys are, but when you get in your 60s, the words can be right there.
Yep. Yep. Wait till you're in your 70s. Yeah.
It's like, am I all right? I think I'm all right. Is everybody? All my friends are doing it too.
Yeah.
So, but there was an exhibit that had her gown in it, and I thought that would be so cool to see.
Oh yes,
it could be very cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you read this book, Lori, you're going to want to see it.
And we don't want to just see it. We want to go up and touch it and look at the hems and look at the seams.
Yes.
Yeah, well, exactly.
The book was so descriptive of her sewing too, that you almost felt like you could see it. Now you really want to see it.
Right.
Really
and it talked about each bead and all, how many
Yes.
beads there were. And it's incredible. That was an incredible feat to sew that gown.
Yes.
And I'm sure there's a similar story to Diana's gown as well, but I don't know that there's a book about it. But that would be an interesting one.
Just don't know.
I made a dress I think there was a butter pattern kind of fake off of Diana's gown. And my neighbor was going to prom, and she wanted a dress like Princess Diana's wedding dress. I lived in Texas at the time, so I made that dress, and I mean, I put my all into that dress, and it was so beautiful, and I do not even have a picture of it.
My wedding gown was a Princess Di look-alike dress.
Yeah, how fun! It's probably the same pattern.
It was a Vogue pattern. I still have the pattern.
Yeah, oh, that's fun.
Yeah,
my dress was I think my aunt made my dress because I was studying for state boards and getting married and had a ton of things to do. So I kind of designed it with her, and she made it. But it was, I think, just based off of a simplicity pattern that she hacked. I mean, she just hacked it. I don't think it was, she just basically used that as a sloper. But yeah. But I'm guessing that there's probably more stories about fashion to defy the Nazis. It would be real interesting because Paris was such a center for that. There's another book called The Paris Seamstress, and I'm wondering how much alike those stories are. So maybe that's one we'll get to down the road.
Yeah.
Not yet. Not yet, because we don't want to read two that are the same right next to each other. There are women in this novel whose choices set them on vastly different paths, from Violette and the women at the Hotel Ritz to Lila, Sandrine, Michelle, and Marguerite, to the real-life historical figures who risked their lives to fight with the French resistance, such as Rose Vaillant and Josephine Baker. How did Parisians survive through either collaboration with or defiance of the Nazis, even with their everyday choices? How were the choices different for women than those for men? That's interesting. So how did it differ? Especially, how did the choices differ I mean, they couldn't necessarily pick up arms and go fight with the resistance, although some of them did, but I think women were spies a lot.
Yeah, they worked behind the scenes probably more,
I think
and
so, yeah.
there were
Hmm.
probably less choices available to women. That was a different time where the women back then didn't have the choices that we would have available to us today, you
Mhm.
know.
Right.
Even just the concept of women working was sometimes not very well received, even when it was necessary.
Right,
Right.
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 And there
So
was a mention about them not even being able to vote. And I thought it was just like a little remark. It was a thought. I believe it
Yeah.
was
mhm,
Lila that saying that she couldn't even vote. But
Which is crazy to think
yeah,
about. We take it for granted,
we
we
do.
sure do.
but there were women in this country. I don't know what year was suffrage, was like in the,
1924.
Yes.
it's not that long ago.
Hmm.
1923. I played the piano for a gal who goes around the country and does a musical presentation about the women's suffrage movement in the United States.
Mm,
And so I'm a bit more familiar with this story than I ever was
Hmm.
before. But she
I'm
tells
sure.
the history of through music, and back then they would write songs specifically to change the culture. They would take familiar melodies and write words to them, and then this would be publicized. And music was actually part of the reason that the change came about, is because
That's so cool.
it was communicated through music. It's a fabulous program. She's based in Indiana.
That's
So,
really cool. I'd love to see that.
oh
I
yeah.
Hmm.
think too, in the 60s, we had the same thing where music,
Mm-hmm.
sorry,
Change.
that noise. Um, in the 60s, they, I'm sorry, a text dinged and I don't know if you guys ended up hearing that or not. I'm sorry if you
Hmm.
did.
No.
Um, I should have like gone on do not disturb so that it just goes away. Next time I will remember to do that. Um, but in growing up in the 60s and 70s, music changed the culture then too. I mean, I think about Kent State and the students that were killed and Neil Young's song, For Dead in Ohio, that there was protest songs were all over the place when we were growing up. And I don't know that that's happening today. Maybe it is. And
I don't I don't think so. I think music has become something more of we're consumers of it rather than doers of it. That's kind of one change
hmm
that in the music field we see, is that
hmm
100 years ago when the suffrage movement was around, people made their own music. Recordings weren't everywhere. Music
Right.
wasn't everywhere. A
hmm
lot of people, everybody played and sang and did these things. And
Right.
now there's a lot more where music is just in the background
hmm
and it doesn't have that forefront that I think it used to have.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a musician also, and I'm amazed at how many people do not play an instrument
Hmm.
or wouldn't sing to save their life. You know,
Yeah,
it's
and
it's
a lot of people have been told, like especially singing, a lot of people have been told they can't sing.
Hmm.
I don't. Our choir teacher never believed that. He said everybody
mm-mm.
can sing,
That's right.
just not everybody's been taught how, and it doesn't
That's
come
right.
naturally to them, so they have to be taught.
No, no, there's pitch training, and yeah, we could probably have a real fun discussion sometime about that. 'Cause
Yeah.
I studied. I actually have a degree in worship arts and music leadership.
Okay.
So yeah, so and I studied voice for many years and piano for only a little bit. But I can play on the worship team just to get by, but
Sure.
I don't play circles. My husband could play circles around any guitarist I knew. I mean, I
Oh,
miss that sound in my house so much.
that you do.
Anyway, question number 9, before I go down a sad road there. In order to be in order to be good citizens, we typically believe we need to obey the government authority placed over us. This is an interesting question too. But in times when we see evidence of what we know core deep to be in conflict with our beliefs, such as when Lila witnessed the Veldiv roundup of Jews by Vichy police in July 1942, is it within our rights to stand up in defiance? When is it time to obey, and when is it time to question and even oppose authority? Ooh, interesting question.
It is an interesting question, and I think really I think the answer for everybody depends on what your core beliefs are.
Yeah,
where
that's right.
Yeah.
Where you base that decision making on.
Well, who your ultimate authority is.
Yes.
If your ultimate authority is the culture, you might not care. But
Right.
for me, there's a higher authority, and somebody else might have a different one, but I agree. I think it depends on your core belief system. But I think it's definitely okay to question when it doesn't, when it opposes, and it's maybe not when, especially if it's affecting you and yours, or you see injustice, like that.
Yep.
But not speaking up. I mean, I love that quote from, well, Bonhoeffer said it, but in a different way, but the one that's attributed to Edmund Burke, but he is not the one who actually said it, but I think Reagan quoted it, and it's that the true way for evil to triumph is all it takes for evil to triumph is that good men do nothing. And it's always attributed to Edmund Burke, but I was looking that up and he actually didn't say it. But Bonhoeffer said something really similar. I can't remember how he said it, but
is that the one where he talks about how they came for the artists and I didn't say anything, and they came for the intellectuals and they didn't say anything, and then it goes through this list, and then they came for me and there was no one to speak up for me. Is that the one you're talking about, Kim?
Yeah, I think so. Bonhoeffer said that as well, right? Yeah. I can't wait for that movie to come out. Did you see there's a movie about Bonhoeffer?
Yes.
There's a movie coming.
Yeah, that should be really good. I saw the previews to that. I just went to see Reagan, and the previews were in that movie.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. There were a lot of really good previews coming up. I'm like, wait, movies are getting good again. And there for a while, there weren't any to go to. They were just, So I have a couple of widow friends. We like to go to the movies a lot.
Oh, what fun.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
We have a widows group that a couple friends and I started at our church, and then there's a couple of women who've been divorced a really long time too, and so we kind of have a friend group that we go do things together. So it's nice. It's nice to have that.
It is very nice. My mother-in-law had that when my father-in-law passed away, and she made decades-long friendships through that group. It was fabulous. So good.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah. It's definitely different, but one foot in front of the other. Question number 10. In the World War II era plundering of fine art of both public institutions and private Jewish collections across Europe, the Nazi regime determined what was dubbed degenerate art, particularly modern art. Klee, Kokoschka, sorry, I couldn't say that right. Wassily Kandinsky. Sandrine and Michelle worked alongside, sorry, I lost my spot there. Rose Vaillant, risking their lives to save the art from theft and destruction. What defines something as art? How do we determine what artistic expression has value over what does not, especially when someone would risk their lives to save it? That's really interesting.
Powerful question, because for some reason this question made me think of I did some research once on the communists and what coming to America is, not to get political, just as a matter of fact. And one of the things in what they wanted to do was to destroy art, and to create art as a mean, not necessarily representative art like we always think of it, but some of this weird, the weird stuff. Okay. And not that that can be interesting, but I thought it was interesting that that question was posed here. And, the communist goal was to destroy that normalcy of art that we had all been used to. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
And, go ahead, Kim.
Yet it was Lenin and Stalin, and that helped end that war. It's interesting when you think about that. They were started out kind of as allies and then ended up entering the Cold War, ended up communist, and what was once Russia became the Soviet Union. And so it's an interesting time. We've lived through an interesting time in history, I believe.
We have, and it's, I don't necessarily, to me, the conversation mimics the music world, because what young composers are writing today is so much different than what was written, even 20 years ago.
I know.
And, I'm just honest, like, I don't like that. It doesn't, I want music that makes me feel better, or at least feel hopeful. And a lot of the music being written now doesn't make one feel better and doesn't make one feel hopeful. But I think what they're expressing is that they're expressing that they have no hope for the future, and that's why their music.
That's really sad.
Well, and art is so subjective. Who is determining what is art, whether it's music, whether it's art, even fabric. We go look at fabric, one of us loves a piece and another one, I couldn't wear that, or I couldn't imagine using it. So
I was watching Project Runway the other day. I like to watch old reruns when I just want to kick back. And this one girl made this coat that everybody was just fawning over. And I'm like, that looks like my grandma's coat. It just I think my face froze. No.
Yep.
Your voice is fine.
There we go. It somehow disconnected itself, but I'm using my phone out here because I didn't want to drag my camera all the way out here.
That's probably a good idea.
Well, that was the last question, but I think it was a good, it was a really good book overall. I did a review on Amazon, and I gave it 4, only because of the jumping back and forth, because I thought people should know that going in. That make sure you read that little part in the beginning where it tells you when
don't
when and where they are. So but yeah, that was good. Well, I have a couple books we could even, if somebody wants to suggest another, I'm open, but I'm going to share my screen here and show you pictures of the books that I found. Let's see. Looking for the binder. Here we go. All right. This is the gown, and I'll read you the description of that one. Sounds like that's one Anne's already read, though, too.
Yes.
I downloaded the descriptions here, so. All right. London, 1947, besieged by the harshest winter in living memory. Burdened by onerous shortages and rationing, the people of post-war Britain are enduring lives of quiet desperation despite their nation's recent victory. Among them are Anne Hughes and Miriam Dasson, embroiderers at the famed Mayfair fashion house of Norman Hartnell. Together they forge an unlikely friendship, but their nascent I don't know what that word means. Hopes for a brighter future are tested when they are chosen for a once-in-a-lifetime honor, taking part in the creation of Princess Elizabeth's wedding gown. In Toronto, 2016, more than a half a century later, Heather Mackenzie seeks to unravel the mystery of a set of embroidered flowers, a legacy from her late grandmother. How did her beloved Nan, a woman who never spoke of her life in Britain, come to possess the priceless embroideries that so closely resemble the motifs on the stunning gown worn by Queen Elizabeth II at her wedding almost 70 years before? And what was her Nan's connection to the celebrated textile artist and Holocaust survivor Miriam Dawson? With the gown, Jennifer Robson takes us inside the workrooms where one of the most famous wedding gowns in history was created, balancing behind-the-scenes details with a sweeping portrait of a society left reeling by the calamitous costs of victory. She introduces readers to three unforgettable heroines, their points of view alternating and intersecting throughout its pages, whose lives are woven together by the pain of survival, the bonds of friendship, and the redemptive power of love.
That one sounds like it goes back and forth.
I don't remember feeling
Don't
like
either.
that.
Yeah, it wasn't quite as abrupt changes.
Yeah.
If it was, it didn't. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I don't remember it being that way, but but I don't remember what I had for breakfast sometimes. So anyway, and then another one was this wedding dress sewing circle. And that one looks, I actually started listening to this audio book, and I didn't finish it before it went back to the library. So but it wasn't because it wasn't good. It was because I was having trouble focusing after my surgery.
Mhm.
All right. Three plucky women lift the spirits of home front brides in war-torn Britain, where clothes rationing leaves little opportunity for pomp and celebration. Even at weddings, in this heartwarming novel based on true events from the best-selling author of the Chilbury Ladies Choir. After renowned fashion designer Cressida Westcott loses both her home and her design house in the London Blitz and has nowhere to go but the family manor house she fled decades ago. Praying that her niece and nephew will be more hospitable than her brother had been, she arrives with nothing but the clothes she stands in, at a loss as to how to rebuild her business while staying in a quaint country village. Her niece, Violet Westcott, is thrilled that her famous aunt is coming to stay. The village has been interminably dull with all the men off fighting. But just as Cressida arrives, so does Violet's conscription letter. It couldn't have come at a worse time. How will she ever find a suitably aristocratic husband if she has to spend her days wearing a frumpy uniform and doing war work? Meanwhile, the local vicar's daughter, Grace Carlyle, is trying in vain to repair her mother's gown, her only chance of a white wedding. When Cressida Westcott appears at the local sewing circle meeting, Grace asks her for help, but Cressida has much more to teach the ladies than just simple sewing skills. Before long, Cressida's spirit and ambition galvanizes the village group into action, and they find themselves mending wedding dresses not only for local brides, but for brides across the country. As the women dedicate themselves to helping others celebrate love, they might even manage to find it themselves. So that seemed like it was going to be a really good book, but I was reading that I was listening to it rather in the hospital after I had my surgery, and I then ended up having to go back to the library. So I thought, well, I'll wait and read that one. And it sounded like one I'd rather actually read than listen to anyway. So, so that is one. And then the other one, let's see. I'm looking for. Oh, where's the third one I sent? Okay. Can you see this one? The pattern artist?
No.
No.
All right, hang on. Let me see if I can drag it there. It's weird because it's in the same thing. Sorry.
Oh, bless you.
I'm so sorry. I'm outside, so. Well, it's a pretty cover. The cover doesn't really matter because it doesn't say anything about the story. But here, why don't I just stop the sharing and I'll just show it to you on my iPad. Let's see. There's the cover.
The pattern artist. Oh,
Okay. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, here's the description of that. This one's a shorter description. Born into a life of hard work, English housemaid Annie Wood arrives in New York City in 1911 with her wealthy mistress. Wide-eyed with the possibilities America has to offer, Annie wonders if there's more for her than a life of service. Annie chooses to risk everything, taps into courage she never knew she had, and goes off on her own, finding employment in the sewing department at Macy's. While at Macy's, Annie catches the eye of a salesman at the Butterick Pattern Company. Through determination, hard work, and God's leading, Annie discovers a hidden gift. She is a talented fashion designer, a pattern artist of the highest degree. As she runs from ghosts of the past and focuses on the future, Annie enters a creative world that takes her to the fashion houses of Paris and into a life of adventure, purpose, and love. So those are the three that I found, and thought we could just pick one today before.
yeah, that's I'm just looking. I actually own the pattern artist. I think
Do
it
you?
was I think it was a freebie that came through one of those, you know, book emails, and I must have downloaded it because yeah. So
Yeah, I think I started reading that. I think it's a series too. There's more than
Yeah.
one of them.
Yep,
Yeah.
it is. But I'm okay with any of them.
Yeah,
Me too.
they all sound good. So
Mhm.
Would you rather read a new one than revisit an old one, Anne?
I don't really care because it probably would be good for me to read it again. Because as you were reading the synopsis, I was going, oh yeah, I remember that part, but not very well. So
yeah, same.
it was a really good book. So
it was good.
Yeah.
So Lori, which one would you rather?
Yeah, Lori
read?
has
'Cause I'm
pattern
I'm
artist.
open.
I like them all. I have
Yeah.
read Wedding Dress Sewing Circle, but I definitely wouldn't mind reading it again because it was that good. And
Okay.
I think good books deserve a second reading because you get
Yeah.
another perspective the second time through.
Yes, that's very true.
So
I agree.
I'm okay with any of them. It really doesn't matter to me.
Okay, I am as well. So
Yeah.
do we go with the pattern artist?
Sounds good.
That's fine with
It
me.
kind of ties
since
into
Lori,
Butterick,
Yeah.
and we all know Butterick, and maybe it sounds like it might be a shorter read too, so maybe that'll get some people.
Yeah, and a
into
different
the book club.
different time of the country. This is, like World War I era, right?
Mhm.
Sounds
Yeah.
like.
Pre-world,
Pre-World War One, yeah.
Right. And a very interesting fashion time too,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, when women were just starting to sew in their homes.
Mhm.
And not, well, they were sewing in their homes, but they were
But-
doing fashion in their homes.
Right. They were
This is just utilitarian. Mhm.
No, it sounds
Jinx,
really
we both said that
interesting.
word. Jinx, we both
Yeah.
said utilitarian at the same
Yes.
time. That was funny. Yeah. So, should we go with the pattern artist for this month?
I think that sounds good.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. So it'll be, I think, was this the third Saturday or the fourth Saturday? I can't remember.
third Saturday.
Third Saturday.
Yeah. So I was gonna just make it the same Saturday every month, unless something comes up, otherwise. But yeah, it falls on a holiday or something, then, or a holiday weekend. So I don't think that's a
It is
holiday weekend or anything.
No, I think we're good.
Yeah.
It is a little shorter book. It's 295 pages.
Oh,
Okay,
So-
that's a little bit shorter then.
yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a quick read then. And there's
So-
more of those, so we can maybe pick up down the road.
Mhm.
Pick the other
Make
ones
a
up.
series, that'd be good.
Mhm. And when I read a
No, I think
series, I
that's-
like to read a couple books in between and then pick it up, rather than going right from one to the other to the other. So, how do you like to do that? Do you like to read series back to back?
I like to read them back to back. I have like mysteries. I have the Cat Who mystery series, and I generally read it about once a year. I'll start at the beginning, go all the way.
Oh,
That's fun. So what mysteries?
The Cat Who books.
Cat Who?
Yeah, The Cat Who Came to Breakfast, The Cat Who Lived High. They were written by Lillian Jackson Braun, and it's the story of a guy who he's a reporter. His early days are spent in Detroit, and then he through his mother was best friends with some lady who ended up leaving him a big fortune, and so then he goes to move to this small town in Michigan and has 2 cats, and they solve mysteries, and it's
that sounds fun.
it's not anything serious to think about. It is pure entertainment. It is just,
I love those, like a Hallmark mystery.
there's nothing earth shattering going
Yeah.
on here, but you
I
don't
like those.
it's not necessarily predictable as far as you can't necessarily figure out who done it, but
Mhm.
it's just, and if you've grown up in a small town or live in a small town, it's a lot of small town things that, everybody knows everybody else's business.
Mhm.
And so it's just pure entertainment. And sometimes,
Oh,
you
that
just,
sounds really cool.
yeah.
I'm gonna have to look those up. Sounds like
Yeah,
something I
me
would
too.
enjoy.
Sounds
Yeah, they're,
really
like I said,
interesting.
they're not gonna make you think about earth-shattering decisions. They're just gonna be entertaining.
Well, I don't know about you, but I read more than one a month, so I'm always looking for book suggestions of.
Yes.
So I think that could be a regular part of our time together at the end too, is to talk about other books we've read. Yeah, there's some really good ones out there. I'd highly recommend, if you enjoy World War II, the Nightingale is, and then Kristen Hanna also. She's a very, very good author, and her books are always, you always have to place a hold at the library. But she has a new one called The Women, and it's a really interesting book about Vietnam nurses.
Ooh.
It's really good. It has nothing to do with sewing, so we wouldn't do it here, but I would highly, I read that book on vacation, and it was so good. So good. I'm like, I don't want to stop and get out and go to the park. I want to finish reading this. So it was a lovely book. Really, really good. And did you know that when they were in Vietnam, that they were not afforded the respect none of them were much, but even the women were even less respected, because women don't go to war. You didn't go to war, but they were in MASH units, and they were very much in war. So they didn't get the respect they deserved until the Vietnam War, the War Nurses Memorial there by the Vietnam Wall, until that was done, which was recent. I mean, not yet, not in the last couple of years, but I remember when we took our kids to Washington, D.C., they had just unveiled that. So it's that recent. So, and my kids are in their 40s. So, yeah, pretty recent. So good. We'll do the pattern artist, and then we'll keep the same time and talk it up so more people come. 7 people signed up, but I always
I-
sign up for something and then I don't have time to read it, and then, but
well,
I
I
think
was
if
finished.
you,
I was
but
finishing reading this morning because for some reason I didn't get through it, and so I was finishing it up, and I was glad. I really enjoyed it. It was a good choice.
yeah, I love that book. And I wasn't sure when I picked it because I didn't read it first.
Mm-hmm.
And but I like the author, so I thought I knew it would be good. Kristen Harmel, another book. So was this Kristy Cambron or Kristen Harmel?
Cambron.
Okay, yeah. Then I get those two of them mixed up because they have very similar books. But Kristen Harmel, that I read a book recently that made me gasp at the end.
Mm.
The twist at the end was like, I did not see that coming, which is I read so much that I usually can see stuff coming. But it was called The Paris Daughter, and that was really good. It was also partially set during World War II and partially after the war, but it was kind of focused more on the picking up the pieces after. It was a good book. So, and you wonder, why is it titled this the whole way through? You go, like, why is that titled? The last couple pages, you realize why. You're like, oh my goodness. And I was like, what? So I if you like books like that, don't read the ending.
I don't spoil all the
Sorry,
fun.
you are not allowed to read the ending.
Will not read the ending. I'll wait till I get there.
Well, it was really good hanging out with you guys.
Well,
I hope
thank
you
you
have
for
a great
putting this-
day.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for
thanks.
putting